Hello, and welcome to Week 16 of FCAO Introduction to Philosophy. You should also be working ahead on the Week 17 and 18 material, your final presentations. This week, we'll be focusing on the Eastern philosophy of Buddhism. Our goals for the week are for you to be introduced to the philosophy of Buddhism, to be able to identify the background and contributions of Siddhartha, to define the main ideas of Buddhism, and to interpret the Buddhist concepts of an interdependent universe and being, quote, in the moment. There are several main assignments you'll be focusing on this week. You'll start with the caterpillar questions, then move on to the writing of your own Buddhist short story, and then you'll watch a documentary on Buddha, a genius of the ancient world. Like the other Eastern philosophies we studied, Buddhism is both a religion and a philosophy. To many, Buddhism goes beyond religion. It is more a way of life. The major tenets are to lead a moral life, to be mindful and aware of your thoughts and actions, and develop wisdom and understanding. So who was the Buddha? Born Siddhartha Gautama in 563 BCE, he was of the noble caste in India, a man who wanted for nothing. He had every food he could want, every luxury he could afford. He lived without pain or suffering. He didn't have to see sickness or old age. He was someone who had everything. And even with everything a person could want, he felt unfulfilled. His father had protected him from suffering, had protected him from the truth of our world, and even in that existence, he didn't feel true happiness. So he rejected the life of excess, where you have everything a human could want, and he left the palace to seek an ascetic life. He thought that if he could not find true happiness and fulfillment in a life where he had everything, perhaps he could find it in a life where he had nothing. Perhaps that suffering would help awaken him and enlighten him. But living the life of a strict ascetic also didn't provide him the enlightenment he sought. In the end, he realized that the extreme suffering also was unfulfilling, as he witnessed the men around him take pride in their suffering. And he realized that perhaps there was a middle path, a middle way. It was at that point, after meditating under a Bodhi tree, that he became the Buddha, the awakened one, at the age of 35. And he would go on to spend the remaining 45 years of his life teaching others how to achieve enlightenment. The way in which to achieve this middle path was through the Four Noble Truths. That to live is to suffer. Existence is suffering. That the cause of that suffering is self-centered desire and attachments. And that if we eliminate our desire and attachments, we can achieve nirvana, extinction of those attachments. And that we can reach nirvana through the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path was a simple, noble way of living, one driven, or guided rather, by wisdom, mental discipline, and moral discipline. Understanding, your motivation, your effort, your mindfulness, your meditation, and then moral discipline of your speech, your action, and your livelihood. What do Buddhists believe? Well, there is a belief among Buddhists in rebirth and reincarnation, of the cycle of life and death and rebirth that results from our attachments. There's the belief in nirvana, a peaceful, detached state of mind. Once the Buddha died after 80 years of life, he achieved nirvana. He ceased to exist as a distinct being. Nirvana is not a heaven. It is a detached state of mind. Buddhism is non-theistic. The Buddha is not a god. He is just a revered teacher. The Buddha is not a god. He is a revered teacher. There are no supreme deities in Buddhism. The Buddha is not an avatar. He is a holy man. He is omniscient, but he is not omnipotent. There are several different schools of Buddhism. Theravada is the oldest, found mostly in southern Asia. Monasticism is the ideal way of life for achieving nirvana. It's a very do-it-yourself approach, focusing on wisdom and meditation, and the goal was to become a Buddha. Mahayana, developed in the 1st century, founded in northern Asia. Buddhism for the masses. There's a group, not individual, end to suffering as the goal, and there's a belief that Buddha can help lead to enlightenment. So there's often prayers to the Buddha for guidance. This is pictures of a Mahayana temple a former student sent me years ago when she visited one on her studies in China. One of the most often discussed schools in the West is the Tibetan school of Buddhism because of the controversy of Tibet as a nation not having freedom as a part of China. This developed in the 7th century CE, and it's a mix of Theravada and Mahayana. And the leader of Tibetan Buddhism lives in exile, and it's who we know as the Dalai Lama. Zen Buddhism is a meditation school which seeks sudden enlightenment through meditation. It uses meditation masters. It focuses on beauty, arts, aesthetics, gardening, archery, tea ceremonies, calligraphy. We often see Zen Buddhism in the West. Within 200 years of his death, Buddhism had spread throughout North and East Asia. And by the 13th century, Buddhism had disappeared from India and was only really found in some small areas, including Sri Lanka. But it had taken over much of the Asian continent. Your first assignment this week is a small story and then several questions about the caterpillar story. Once you're done with that and have reflected on the caterpillar story, you're going to actually write your own Buddhism short story. Once you've completed and submitted that short story, you will then move on to a documentary. You can do the documentary before the caterpillar story and the short story if you'd like, but you do have to read the caterpillar story and answer the questions first before you write your own short story. I do think you will really enjoy the BBC documentary. It is very well done. Please complete the viewing guide and submit. Over the past 2 centuries, Buddhism has made inroads in the West, especially in the latter half of the 20th century and the early part of the 21st century. Immigration of Asian peoples have brought very diverse forms of Buddhism to the West, and Western followers have tended to adopt practices of Buddhism rather than the wholesale philosophy. But you can see meditation practices, Zen art practices, and many people incorporate aspects of Buddhist philosophy into their Western religious beliefs.